G'day buddies. So this is the first in what is intended to become a long series of videos where I go through and discuss Ngarla songs and stories. And I thought we could start with this song here, composed in 1914. Because it ties in with the series about phonology that I'm doing. As you are probably aware, when foreign words and expressions are incorporated into a language, sometimes these words and expressions end up sounding really different from how they sound in the original language. For the reason that the phoneme inventory and the phonotactic constraints are really different in the two languages. I think most people know that Merry Christmas becomes Melikalikimaka in Hawaiian, which is a good example. And in this case here, it is this word that is interesting, Jorilianya. And it is interesting that it becomes so different from the English version. But I will get to that in a minute or two. First, I want to mention that the Ngarla people, they wrote songs to commemorate specific events, noteworthy or important events. And those are the kind of songs that we are going to look at. So this one was composed in 1914. What happened was that a big ship came into Port Hedland in northwestern Western Australia, which is Australia's biggest port when it comes to the number of tons of materials and goods that are shipped out through there every year. Someone might ask, how could a place that is completely unknown for people in other countries be Australia's biggest port? Well, this has to do with the fact that they have the largest iron ore deposits in the whole world there in that region. And they ship out lots of it every year to China and Japan, and some to the US too, I understand. So a big ship came in. It was 1914, the First World War had started in Europe, and it came to pick up soldiers. And the Ngarla man who saw this ship, well, he was very impressed by its size. And he was also impressed by the propellers that threw up lots of spray in the air. That's what this first part is about. Now, this is the name of the ship. Wanagoro means something that is very big. And I've been wondering how this Ngarla man heard this name. We can be sure that he didn't read it himself. You see, Aborigines were not considered humans. They were considered a part of the flora and fauna, essentially animals, and you don't send animals to school. So we can be quite sure he couldn't read. In fact, the last speakers that I worked with, they were born in the 1930s, and they couldn't read and write because they hadn't been to school either. Imagine that, living in the 21st century where reading and writing is so essential, and never having been taught to do that, to be able to do that. It must be very difficult. These two old men, they had been taught to write their own names so they could sign documents. But obviously they couldn't read the documents themselves. Yes, must be very difficult. So, the Ngarla man, I'm assuming he didn't know the name of his country either. You see, the ship in question here was called Australia. And I'm thinking, if he knew the name of his country and had heard it a lot, had heard it frequently, perhaps the Ngarla version of the name would have been closer to the English version. As with, for example, words like motorcar and motorcar driver, which break Ngarla phonotactic constraints, but which were nevertheless incorporated into the language. And Jurilianya here has 5 syllables. Jurilianya. So I'm thinking maybe he heard the name like Australia. Jurilianya. I can't be sure, but something like that seems likely. Yes, so anyway, let's get to the song, shall we? Now, I am not going to do a morpheme by morpheme analysis of the songs. The fact is, I haven't studied them in detail myself. My colleague Brian Gatenbeek has. This is another genre than the speech genre. This is more poetic. And in his translations, Brian Gatenbeek has attempted to be more poetic as well. So let's see what we have here. I'm not going to attempt to sing, by the way. Wura wura Pama-Nyungan. And since I haven't memorized the song, I printed it out. You are tossing away the turbulence, is Brian's translation here. Wura wura Pala-Nyungan. That's your spray there. So that's referring to the huge propellers and the spray they were throwing up. The huge propellers that really impressed the Ngarla man. Then we have Jinjipada Jinara Mari Wanagoro Jorilianya. It's another stage on your long journey. Truly huge, Australia. Jinjipada is literally another step. So obviously this Ngarla man knew that this ship had come from somewhere, was picking up people and was then going somewhere else. And then we have the last part. I think I'll just read it from the paper, why not? Nyangamara Jurgul Jananyoro Mari Nyarboro Judindian. Let's see here, did I get the last part right? Judindian, yeah, I think so. For me as a Swedish speaker, there are definitely Ngarla words that are tongue twisters. This one is a bit tricky, Judindian. And I note here we have a complex verb that starts here, Jurgul, and continues with Jananyoro. Anyway, this means heading steadily away in a straight line. Truly your noise is covered by the sound of the outgoing tide as you disappear into the distance. This was in 1914, and as you can see, this event is still remembered. And as I said, I find this a bit puzzling, that it is so different, that Jurilianya is so different from English Australia, when we know that the ship was in fact called Australia. Yes, I think I will leave you with that for today. And so I will see you later.